Greetings, Christian friends. I am Aurelius Augustine, a minister and theologian of the 4th century, dedicated to preaching and teaching the Bible for the glory of Christ. As a devout Christian, I also identify as an Augustinian, which may seem confusing at first. To clarify, being an Augustinian aligns with being a Calvinist. Does that help? John Calvin himself was an Augustinian, adhering to the same gospel of Jesus Christ that I did, despite the millennium that separates our lifetimes. The core of our theological systems, focusing on justification, the atonement of Jesus, God's sovereignty, grace, perseverance, and all that revolves around the grace of Christ, remains consistent. We both taught biblical doctrines emphasizing God's sovereignty and free grace, a tradition extending for centuries, even millennia. Terms like Augustinian or Calvinist represent a thought system centered on God's complete sovereignty in salvation, encapsulating the belief that salvation is entirely God's work on behalf of His elect people. Psalm 115:3 says, "But our God is in the heavens, He hath done whatsoever He hath pleased." Do you believe this? I hope you do. In Christian belief, God is both the author and finisher of our faith, initiating, granting, and sustaining salvation for those whom Christ died for, echoing the theme of giving His life as a ransom for many, all those the Father has given Him. This is not a novel idea, but is rooted in the gospel taught since the Garden of Eden in Genesis 3 verse 15, even through to the ministry of Jesus Christ, the apostles, the early church fathers, and through my extensive writings consistently emphasizing the unchanging nature of the gospel. Dr. McMahon has extensively studied my works, examining my adherence to the doctrines of grace, and compiled his findings in a work cleverly titled Augustine's Calvinism. This book addresses whether my beliefs align with the doctrines of grace, known as Calvinism or Tulip, and compares them to the teachings in Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion. It's important to recognize that Calvinism and my theological system encompass more than just 5 points, as my writings alone span thousands of pages and dozens of volumes. People often think that grace is just 5 points, or for that matter that Calvinism is just a nickname for the 5 points. This is in error, and Dr. McMahon shows this in relationship to my teachings. The book, available at Puritan Publications in both ebook and printed formats, investigates whether my views on the doctrines of grace align with those of John Calvin, the Synod of Dort, the 1647 Westminster Confession, and other Reformed perspectives. Given that the Bible and its teachings on faith and practice remain constant, one would expect to find congruence between my thoughts on grace and those of any Reformer or Puritan who believed in the gospel of grace. And you would be right to think so. This leads to intriguing considerations. Should those who believe in the doctrines of grace be labeled as Christian Calvinists or Augustinians? Are these terms interchangeable? Did I share the same understanding of these doctrines as Calvin and the later Puritans, or even modern-day Calvinists? I can assure you now I am even in the restricted use of the term a Calvinist. I invite you to explore these questions and understand the wonderful topic of grace through my writings as presented in this work. May the Lord bless your journey into this vital subject. Amen.